Is it less feminist to be a housewife? So I am a housewife, and I I chose being a housewife before getting married. Like, I quit my job in like 2023, but it was by the end of 2024 that I decided that. Finally, the courage came in, and I decided that I will not go for a job, because most jobs are, devil employs you. Most jobs, devil is the employer. No, I'm not talking about your bosses, but what you see. You see a structure of a boss, employee, and employer, but behind those lines of an employee and employer, you know, there is somebody who is, you know, uh, doing the puppet show, doing the puppet show of you are bosses or employers. They are all, puppets of somebody behind those, those big bosses who are never even seen, who own the industry, who own the offices. Those are the real people. Those are your real employees, and those are the real devil employers. Okay. Um, the other average is just, the human average is just choosing to be the employer or the employee or the employer. They are, playing the games with being an employer and employer. But really, behind the scenes, there is somebody out there sitting in an AC room, and I think they're very intelligent to not sit in an AC room. They're really intelligent to not sit in an AC room. They will want you to buy an AC, but they themselves will stay in strong ventilated rooms because they know the real knowledge. They know what works, but they don't want those things to work for you. They want that things that they invent, things that they make, you know, work for you. But they are the ones who are really relishing and enjoying the nature. They know the natural wisdom to some extent, of course, to some extent only, because you know yeah, the more you do evil in the world, the more you tend to forget the natural wisdom. It's a curse. It's the law of karma. Really, people forget their natural wisdom. People forget the real wisdom. Trust me, it happens. It will just be out of your brain one day. It's a curse. So yeah, I decided to quit my job by the end of 2025 when the real courage came. So between 2023 and between 2025, I think I got my timeline up and down, up and down. So, okay, so in 23 I quit my job, but I was still preparing for an exam. And then by the end of 24, the courage rushed in, and the time seemed right. And by God's grace and God's help, I was like, let's do away with this. And it was just the right time. So I quit preparing for an exam. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore because the time is changing. I am being called for something greater. I am being called for, and it's an honor, it's a privilege to being called for something greater. It's really an honor, it's really a privilege. To participate, to be in the new earth, to participate in the new earth, to be in the new earth and to build a new earth. So yeah, and it wasn't. By the end of 24, I knew I'm not doing it. I got married by the end of 2025. I got married in the end of 2025, and yeah, so it's not much of a time that I got married, but I mean, it's not much of a time being living a housewife, being living the role of a housewife, but I am living. So, does that make me less of a feminist? Um, is what I want to discuss here in this video. Living as a housewife, does that make me less of a feminist? Is what I want to ask here. So, trust me, I was never that person who would quit the job, who would just not do anything, because I've been around a lot of women, and you know, so let's go back in time and let me give you the whole context. So, back in time, men doing jobs, was a big thing back then. You know why? Because, jobs that involve suffering, misery are the ones that are very difficult. Very difficult to, miserable jobs only make you egoistic. Okay? The jobs that you're suffering will make you as egoistic because you're like, you know what? I'm doing such a hard job. You know, it just goes to your head and, straight to your head, and you feel like you're the king of some place. You feel like you're the king of the jungle or something like this. So, yeah, in jobs, you know, the hard jobs make you egoistic. So men back then did hard jobs that they didn't want to do. It didn't align with their nature. Um, and yes, um, they were egoistic, you know, and then they looked down upon the women, you know, and women actually started to look down upon themselves. They started to look down upon themselves that they do not do much of a work. And from hence, there, the idea evolved that the next generation of women, I mean, I remember getting a lot of advices uh, before marrying. I remember people telling me, you know women have done so much to come to a point where now they go to a job, they do the work, you know after a lot of pain and hardships, they've come to a point, don't ruin it from women, you should do a job, you know and the advice was from a woman, and I was like, okay. I don't know what to explain. I I mean, sometimes you just cannot explain. Yeah, this is my safe place for explaining. I feel this is my safe place for explaining, rather than sometimes, yeah, it's just safe place in a way, because or maybe I'm just always tired of explaining to individual people. Let me just make a video, put it outline, and just finish it off. That's how I feel. Okay, whatever. So, yeah, they come to a point where they said that, don't ruin it for women. Go out and work, earn money for yourself, be independent. So, these are the advices that I got. I mean, of course, everybody is saying from their perspective, and the kind of struggle that women have gone through, it's okay. that advice was okay. I don't feel that advice was so wrong. I mean, it wasn't right either, but like I get it from where you come. I get it from where you come, okay? Women have seen those hardships and they, you know, so yeah. So the first generation of women, when men started to do the jobs that they didn't want to do, so women started looking down upon themselves and, they were abused and, they were seen inferior. They never got that respect for doing the housework that they should get. Then the next generation of women, just was in the middle. She was going outside working, and at the same time, somehow the family members were dependent on women. Family members could not see that she's becoming a man going outside and work, and yet the new era of the feminism way was calling her like she has to be the new woman, she has to be the modern woman, she has to go out and work. So the next generation actually faced that problem of being somewhere in the middle. Then came the third generation, which I feel um, was, and these are all just natural observations from my life around. So then there came the third. I did not get it from any research paper or something, just normal simple observation. So the third generation of women came who are like, now we are going out, we are working, right? And now they get cooks, they hire cooks, they hire house helps, and that's how the work, that's how somehow, now the family also has started to see that the woman is also the man. Now she's going out, she's working, so they started to liberate her. They start to not be so dependent on her. They don't expect that much from her, because now they really start to see her as a man as well. And she herself feels that, the fulfillment, like she is the man now, she earns the bread. you know so and in that place, the house helps come in, the cooks come in, you know the laundry business, the laundry industry comes in, like, right? Um even even what do we call them, babysitters come in. That's the place when babysitters also come in. Now you don't have a home of like 3 or 4 people. Now you have a home of like 10 people. Because now there are house helps, there are so many people involved in your family stuff. Okay, so that has been my natural observation, right? And I've also been that woman. I mean, that girl, like, because that were the teachings in school. Um, for a woman to get independent, liberated, for a woman to feel a woman, for a woman to feel the self respect and everything, she has to go out and earn. She has to be independent, financially independent. She doesn't have to depend on somebody, so that she can always back out when she needs. She can always, she can always do her own thing because she is financially independent. So that was the thing, and I've always stick to that idea. I was always that girl. Trust me, I couldn't believe that I decided to be a housewife myself. I couldn't believe it myself. Also because of that's how intuition works. That's how intuition works. Okay. Um yeah, intuition is like that. It is, yeah, it's so, you don't know, like, your your logical mind goes haywire. It's like, what are you doing, intuition? What are you telling, intuitive? You're like, you have these two brains, and one brain is like, this is the this is what we have to do, intuitively. It's like so foggy, and it doesn't have a logic, it doesn't have a ground. It's like in the air, you have to do this. And your logic is like, what? Okay, how could you? Your logical mind goes like, what? What? So I was never that girl who would decide to go for a no job or decide to go a housewife. Um, yeah, but I knew the times that were coming in intuitively, and I did what I did. And so, yeah, I just want to come here and talk about, did I become less of a feminist? Because that's what I've been taught since childhood, and I completely believed in that idea that, I have, and of course, that took me a little while to ingest and digest about what I'm going to do, you know, next. So it's been a mm, few months only, I guess, 3 to 4 months only, I guess, being a housewife, and I have some really interesting insights about being a housewife. And as much as I could really look into the dynamics, it's perfect. It's perfect actually, because a woman, how they say, I've seen these posts online, they keep saying that, woman protects man in the spiritual world and the man protects the woman in the physical world, and it's just so true. Women are actually doing the spiritual work. Cooking and cleaning are the most spiritual work. They're the most heavy energy works that you actually do. You know, it's been a long time. I've been cleaning and cleaning my house for some reason. I've never done that. I have never managed my own home because I was so much in my own head for so long, you know. And when I left my head, I came back to my, house, and I think it's been a year or so that I've been just cleaning and cleaning, and still there's a lot of cleaning that needs to be done in life and in general. So cleaning itself is a very heavy energy work. And have you ever, I don't know if that has happened with you, but whenever I do a cleaning work or something, some good unexpected news comes in, or somebody gives me something that I've been wanting for so long, but I was like, since, but because of little bit of financial restraint, I couldn't. So, and whenever I clean, it happens. And I'm like, and of course, cleaning is, sometimes you clean yourself spiritually and it automatically happens in the physical. But sometimes you can also do the vice versa. Sometimes you can really clean yourself physically and it may induce some of your spiritual cleaning as well, you know, and it really helps. Whenever I do my puja, before doing my puja, I clean it myself. I mean, it's not necessary to clean it myself, but the kind of, it gives me a lot of space and time, you know, to, before doing my puja. The cleaning gives me that space and time, and it helps me a lot. I feel a lot more good energetically. So, cleaning is a very heavy spiritual work. I mean, just a little bit cleaning the house, and I'm getting, good news from outside, you know, and then cooking is a very heavy spiritual work. I mean, the kind of thoughts you have, the kind of course, a person, a house help coming from outside, maybe she had a fight with her husband, maybe she's going through something really difficult in her life, she coming and making food for you. Of course, I mean, of course, the context could vary, in some context it is needed, but in yeah, I mean, food is a very heavy energy work. It's so important that one is food on your plate, but the other thing is who is serving you, who is cooking for you. That itself is a very heavy spiritual work. Who's touching the food? What kind of thought he has of making a food for you? So cooking and cleaning were the most spiritual work that a woman would do, and she was doing it for years. And suddenly, man goes out, do miserable jobs, and they started looking down upon the woman that you don't do a miserable job, you don't do hard jobs like us, you are silly and foolish. Very British idea, very, very British idea. Of course, they put it into our mind. They kind of hypnotized us into that. Okay, so I don't feel that I'm doing any less of a thing in a relationship or in a partnership where I am a housewife. I don't feel that I am doing any less of a work in a partnership or in a marriage. Yeah. Then okay, so there is this concept in Hindu philosophy of four varnas: Brahman, Vaishya, Shudra, and Kshatriya. So I don't feel that men and women belong to those category. I feel that, have you seen the Ikigai chart? If you have ever seen the Ikigai chart, like it will tell you what are the components of your in your life. How much you're doing it for your environment, how much you're doing for your society, how much you're doing it for yourself, how much time you're giving your family. It's a chart, and it's divided into like it's a wheel, and that wheel is divided into like 7 to 8 components, and you have to you have to make a balance of all these 7 components, that you're giving equal time to yourself, you're giving equal time to your spiritual life, you're giving equal time to your finances, you're giving equal time to your health and family. Likewise, I feel that Brahman, Vaishya, Shudra, and Kshatriyas, the four varnas that we have, are components of your own life. How much time you're giving to your Brahman nature, the spiritual nature? How much time are you giving to the Shudra, the cleaning part? How much time are you giving to your Vaishya, the business, the financial part? How much time are you giving to your Kshatriya, the physical part, protecting your family, against climate change, financial changes that are coming up in the world, of course, or maybe it is just creeping in, and then whatever. So, a man itself or a woman itself, is divided into these four wheels, 4 components. So, yeah, yeah. And, it's when you are in a partnership or in a relationship, these components may, you know, swing. These components, fulfilling these components may swing between each other, and that's how it works, right? I don't know if I can really explain you. When you get into partnership, be it a business, be it a marital partnership, whatever, it's like you are one being, and the duties kind of, have you seen two brothers doing the business ever? Like one will take care of the skills, he has a skill set, the other will take care of the money, you know and that's when the wave comes in, and that's how they knew the power of the family. They knew when two brothers are together, two sisters are together, they can do a lot. So what do? They tell you that you should leave the village, you should you know leave the village, get your half property, get out, go take a new property in the cities, stay, live there, and now you're independent. But you actually separated the skill set and you know the person who knows how to manage the finances. So they really did that. So in any partnership, you're one being, right? So the components keep swinging forth and back and forth. Sometimes you are doing the Shudra part, sometimes somebody is doing the kshatriya part, sometimes he is doing the brahman part, and sometimes you are doing that part. But mostly your, you know mostly your structure remains same. For example, a woman is, tend to be more spiritual. Woman will tend to do the more brahman part, and brahman part requires a lot of energy, more energy than a physical, any person doing any physical work will not require that much of an energy. But anybody doing a spiritual work, to perceive, to perceive your own shit, to perceive your own wounds, to perceive your own traumas, to perceive your own shadows, to perceive your own um, faults, it requires a lot of energy, lot of meditation, lot of awareness. So that's the Brahman part, and that requires a lot of energy. So women's work is not actually very visible or tangible, but it's there. A housewife work is there. It's not very tangible and visible. But of course, we lived in those times where, of course, the invisible work, the spiritual work was seen as, at of course we lived in the ages of sciences, how they said in the science, only that thing it could be seen under a microscope is real, and what cannot be seen under a microscope is not real. That was what science taught us. I was heavily influenced. I went to a school and they influenced me bloody they bloody influenced me under the science, and I said that there cannot exist a god, and I was just so logical. Whereas my intuitive part was like, have you lost it? And then when my intuitive part woke up, my feminine woke up, my logical part of it is like, have you lost it? so, so yeah, it's funny being a human, but yeah. So yeah, now I'm really trying to balance both of them. So yes. So yeah, that's what I want to tell, that she's doing the spiritual work and it's invisible and it cannot be seen under microscope, but that doesn't mean it does not exist and she's not doing the work. She's doing a lot more than what is visible. Okay, yes, then one more thing is that, of course, one person is working, one is not. Of course, you are under a little bit of financial constraint, you have less money. But I mean, I don't think so. I was always a very, a person who would expend much. Like, honestly, when I was doing a job, I didn't have time to expend, money, because I was so busy with my spiritual work. I just wanted to, I just want to find the light. I just want to find the God. And I was just so busy with my own spiritual work that I didn't have time to, you know, to expend on things. Okay. I was always a little bit that person. But yes, now when I know that there is this one person earning and one is not, so of course there's less money. And how do we go about it? So, of course, now I am very aware of my financial energy, where we put our financial energy. We are very aware of that. And it's also very important. It's also, and in the times coming, it's very, very important to know where your money is going. Yeah, it's very important. You cannot, close your eyes and give off your money. No, it's completely your responsibility. You have to have your, you have to have your accountability. Okay. I mean, yeah, we have to be careful. So yes, of course there's less money, but have you seen those rich kids who are obese? I don't want to fat shame anyone. I swear I don't want to fat shame anyone. But rich kids are actually obese. The people the parents who have a lot of money and their kids, I see them, they're really fat, and they're having burgers and they're having pizzas and they're having a lot of clothes in the cupboards, and yeah, they're just so consumed. It's not always it's not always bad to have less money, because less money makes you more brainy. You're like, I have less money now. When you have money, you're like, I can just spend it and I can just get what I want. But now you don't have that much money and you're very careful around your money. So now what you do is, you are like, okay, I don't have much money. So now you'll try apply your brains. Your creative power actually starts to kick in. And what I'm experiencing in life is like, I have never started to think in that manner. I am like, there are creative solutions, there are creative alternatives, and we don't always have to spend money just like that. I am finding in alternatives like that. My creative power is kicking in, and that makes me more, my feminine is going stronger, because of course your problem solving part, the feminine part is kicking in, and problem solving part makes your masculine stronger. The creative, solution that you find makes your feminine part stronger. So your masculine is a problem solver, and your feminine is your creativity. It gives you the creative solutions. So, you know, I'm not spending money, but my creativity is kicking in. So one point is that I really want to discuss. Yeah. Okay. Now I have a little bit controversial to say something. So if Shiva would be here, he would want women to be housewives. Little bit, I don't know if it's a little controversial or what, but yeah, I mean, it's true. If God would be here, he would want women to be housewives, to do the spiritual work, because spiritual works actually holds the physical. The spiritual world actually holds the physical. She's the one who was always been leading. So Shiva would be here, he would want women to be the housewives, or women just doing the feminine work. Okay. I mean, back in those days, there were women who were doing brilliant, they were doing brilliant spiritual feminine works. Okay. They were oracles, they gave predictions, they were seers, they see through and see beyond time. They were intuitive readers, they were tarot card readers. And some tarot card readers are really wise, I feel it, and some are not. And yeah, that's how world is. So yeah, you know there are people who give predictions, there are people who tell you, but they do it with wisdom. And then there are people who do it but not with the right kind of wisdom. They give predictions but not with the right kind of wisdom. So that's another thing. So yeah. Yeah. So if Shiva would be here, he would want women to be either housewives, do the spiritual work, or just do the feminine works that women were actually doing. Back I was watching this Ramayana coming on, I don't know which channel it came on, and there was this. What was the name of that lady? It name starts with G. Gangotri. She was a very wise lady. She was in Ahilya? No, 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 not Ahilya. What was her name? Her name is also in the there's a college based on her name. What is the name of that? Gangotri. I don't know. This woman is I have a very bad memory. I can't help it. So this woman, there's a scene where she is asking questions. She's having a rapid fire round kind of, and this rapid fire round is no nothing like that coffee with current questions. Okay, like who did you have sex with? Who did you? I don't know. That's what he keeps asking people. I don't know in Coffee with Karan. So I mean, she is asking such profound questions to Sita, and Sita is like on fire. What answer she is giving? It's next to awesome. Yeah, she is so, she knows how to, give answers, and it's just so rapid. And rapid fire round, what does it represent? That you have less time, and when you have less time now, you will be more and more of yourself. You can't help it, but you will be more and more yourself, because when you have less time and pressure is more, you can't help but be yourself. If you're angry, inside will just come out. If you're hateful, inside will come out. If you are compassionate, inside will come out. If you're kind, inside will come out. If you're God, inside will come out. So, and I am just so, I was like, wow, who wrote this scene? And I don't know if this really, this, they really found these question and answers in a book or something. If this scene was really, they've taken the dialogues really from a book, or I don't know what, but it was so amazing. So back in those days, women were like debating, and they did the spiritual work. They were seers, they were perceivers, and it's easy for a women to do feminine works, to do spiritual works. Spiritual work is in the air. Okay, it's not in the physical. She's doing things in the air. So she's fire. Okay, she's a fire element. I feel feminine is a fire. Woman is a fire element. It's a fire element. Of course, she's water too, but she's more fire, I feel. She's fiery. I don't know. Okay. So, yeah. Uh, if Shiva would be here, he would want women to be either housewives or do the real feminine works. And housewives can only do the feminine works, because now they have time and space to do it, right? And if devil was here on planet Earth, which he is, by the way, Shiva is also, by the way, on the planet Earth. If devil was here on the planet Earth, he would want women to do masculine jobs. He would want women to do the masculine jobs, which women are doing. You know, things that don't make sense to them, things that do not spark their creativity. They're doing it. So yes. Okay. Uh, yeah, the Brahman's work, the spiritual work is actually very, it's a lot of energy work, right? So the next point that I'm really trying to talk with you around is, I've just written all these points because I thought I'll forget it, which I really do sometimes. So the next point that I have to discuss here is that, Brahman is very sensitive. It requires time and space. He's deeper than others. He looks at things more deeply. Okay, maybe I'll make a part two of it now. I think for part one, this is enough. So I'll make a part two of this. Thank you for watching.